You are standing on a frozen riverbank. It is 40,000 years ago. The air temperature is minus 30 degrees Celsius. There is no shelter. There is no fire yet. You have been walking for days. Your hands are numb. Your feet are numb. Your face is raw from the wind. But you are alive. Behind you, a group of humans huddles together. They are your band. They are your survival. You have traveled far from the equator. You have entered a world of ice. Every instinct in your tropical body tells you to go back. But there is food ahead. Big animals with thick coats and heavy bones. Enough meat to last months. If you can survive the cold long enough to reach them, you keep walking. Winter is trying to kill you. This is a fight you cannot win with strength. You must win it with your mind. Let me ask you something. Why do humans live in places where winter kills? If you look at the natural range of any other tropical primate, you find them in warm climates. Chimpanzees live in Central and West Africa. Orangutans live in the tropical rainforests of Borneo and Sumatra. None of them live anywhere near snow. None of them could survive a single night in a Siberian winter. But humans live everywhere. We live in the Arctic. We live in the Himalayas. We live in Patagonia. We live in Siberia. How did a species that evolved in the African savanna, a species with no fur, no blubber, no claws, and no natural cold tolerance, become the most widely distributed mammal on Earth? The answer is not about what your body is made of. It is about what your brain can imagine. Let us go back to the beginning of the human relationship with cold. The first humans evolved in Africa around 300,000 years ago. For most of that time, they stayed in warm environments. The climate was stable. Food was available year-round. Winter was not a problem because winter barely existed. But around 70,000 years ago, something began to change. The climate started oscillating wildly. Sea levels rose and fell by over 100 meters. Forests turned into grasslands. Grasslands turned into deserts. Deserts turned into ice. This was not a stable world. It was a world of constant, brutal change. And in this world, some groups of humans began to do something new. They began to move north. Let me tell you about the coldest evidence. The site of Yana rhinoceros horn in Siberia is one of the oldest known Arctic human settlements. It dates to around 45,000 years ago. A 2016 study by Dr. Vladimir Patulko at the Russian Academy of Sciences analyzed the site and confirmed that humans were living at Arctic latitudes during the peak of the last glacial period. These were not seasonal visitors. They lived there year-round. They hunted mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, bison, and horses. They built shelters from mammoth bones and skins. They burned mammoth bones as fuel because there was no wood. The mammoth was their everything. A 2013 study by Dr. Lee Lyman at the University of Missouri analyzed mammoth bone use across Siberia and found that humans systematically harvested these animals, not just for meat, but for raw materials. Every part of the mammoth was used. The meat was food. The fat was fuel and lamp oil. The bones were building material and tool stock. The hide was clothing and tent covering. The sinew was thread. The tusks were spears and art. Without the mammoth, Arctic survival would have been impossible. But with it, humans thrived in conditions that would kill an unadapted primate within hours. But let me tell you about the most important winter technology of all: fire. You probably think of fire as a tool for cooking, but in the context of winter survival, fire was a tool for staying alive. A 2012 study by Dr. Dennis Sangatha at Simon Fraser University analyzed the evidence for fire use at Neanderthal sites across Europe. Sangatha found that fire use was not continuous. Neanderthals used fire when they needed it and let it die when they did not. That sounds obvious, but it reveals something important. Fire was a deliberate managed tool, not a constant background presence. Early humans carried fire with them as they moved north. They learned to keep it alive through blizzards and rain. They learned to feed it with specific fuels that burned hot and long. A 2016 study by Dr. Andrew Sorensen at Leiden University tested different fire-making techniques used by ancient humans. Sorensen found that the most reliable method for starting a fire in cold conditions was striking iron pyrite against flint. This produced hot sparks that could ignite dry tinder even in wet or freezing conditions. Without this technique, humans could not have survived the ice ages. The ability to make fire on demand in any weather was the difference between life and death. Let me tell you about the second most important winter technology, the needle. A 2018 study by Dr. Ian Gilligan at the University of Sydney argued that the invention of tailored clothing was one of the most significant innovations in human evolution. Gilligan pointed out that loose-fitting animal skins, the kind you wrap around your body, provide basic insulation, but they do not protect your extremities. Your fingers, toes, ears, and nose freeze first. Loose skins leave gaps where wind enters and heat escapes. Tailored clothing changed everything. The oldest known needles date to around 40,000 years ago, from sites in Siberia and the Russian plain. These needles are tiny, thin pieces of bone or ivory with a hole drilled at one end. They are easy to overlook, but they represent a revolution. With a needle, you can sew animal skins into fitted garments. You can create leggings, boots, hoods, and gloves. You can create multiple layers with air pockets for insulation. A 2020 study by Dr. Gilligan at the University of Sydney modeled the insulation value of different clothing types. Gilligan found that tailored clothing with multiple layers provides the same insulation as a thick layer of fur. But unlike fur, you can take it off, you can adjust it, you can repair it. The needle gave humans a mobile, adjustable, replaceable coat of fur that did not require evolving a new biological trait. Think about that. A single technology, a sharp piece of bone with a hole in it, allowed a tropical ape to walk into the Arctic. Let me tell you about shelter. When you think of ancient human shelters, you probably think of caves. Caves are warm, they are dry, they are permanent. But caves are not everywhere. To survive winter across the planet, humans had to build their own caves. The most impressive examples are the mammoth bone houses of Eastern Europe. At sites like Mezherich in Ukraine, archaeologists have found circular structures made entirely of mammoth bones. A 2015 study by Dr. Eileen Johnson at Texas Tech University analyzed the construction techniques of mammoth bone houses. Johnson found that these structures required the bones of at least 20 to 30 mammoths each. The builders arranged jawbones, skulls, and long bones in interlocking patterns to create a framework. They covered this framework with animal skins, earth, and turf. The resulting structure was windproof, insulated, and large enough to hold an extended family. Inside, a central hearth provided heat and light. The interior temperature could be kept above freezing, even when outside temperatures dropped to -40 degrees. These houses were not simple windbreaks. They were engineering projects. They required planning, and they worked. Let me tell you about another winter survival technique that you probably never think about: food storage. In warm climates, food is available year-round. In cold climates, the growing season is short. For months at a time, there is nothing fresh to eat. No berries, no roots, no greens. And meat does not stay fresh forever. A 2016 study by Dr. John Speth at the University of Michigan analyzed food storage practices among hunter-gatherer groups in cold environments. Speth found that ancient humans used a variety of preservation techniques. They froze meat in natural ice patches. They dried meat in the wind. They smoked meat over fires. They fermented meat in pits lined with animal skins. They buried fat in permafrost, where it could last for years. Fat was particularly important. In cold climates, Humans need more calories just to maintain body temperature. A 2017 study by Dr. Lauren Cordain at Colorado State University estimated that an active adult in a cold climate needs between 4,000 and 5,000 calories per Dalton Y. Fat provides 9 calories per g-gram, more than double that of protein or carbohydrates. Ancient humans in cold climates craved fat with an intensity that modern humans find hard to understand. They would eat the fattiest parts of an animal first: the brain, the marrow, the organ fat, the subcutaneous fat. They would store extra fat for lean months. They would risk their lives to hunt fat animals. A 2018 study by Dr. Brian Fagan at the University of California, Santa Barbara documented how the pursuit of fat drove human expansion into cold climates. The story of winter survival is in large part the story of the human pursuit of fat. Let me tell you about migration. Not all ancient humans stayed in cold places year-round. Many followed the seasons. They moved north in summer when food was abundant and the weather was mild. They moved south in winter when the ice advanced and the game retreated. A 2019 study by Dr. William Davies at the University of Southampton analyzed seasonal migration patterns of ancient humans in Europe. Davies used stable isotope analysis of animal teeth to track when and where ancient humans hunted. He found that some groups moved over 1,000 kilometers each year, following the herds. This was not aimless wandering. It was a carefully timed annual cycle. They knew when the caribou would move north. They knew when the salmon would spawn. They knew when the berries would ripen. They knew when the ice would break. This knowledge was passed down orally, from generation to generation. It was the ancient equivalent of a calendar, and it was essential for survival. But let me tell you about something that most people get wrong about winter survival. Your body itself is a winter survival tool. You probably think of humans as physically weak and poorly adapted to cold, compared to a polar bear or a walrus. That is true, but compared to your closest primate relatives, you are remarkably cold tolerant. A 2015 study by Dr. Herman Poncer at Hunter College analyzed the metabolic rate of humans compared to other primates. Poncer found that humans have significantly higher metabolic rates than chimpanzees or gorillas. We burn more calories at rest than any other ape. This means we generate more body heat. A 2017 study by Dr. Kara Okerbok at the University of Notre Dame measured how human bodies respond to cold exposure. Okerbok found that humans have a unique ability to increase heat production through non-shivering thermogenesis. This process burns brown fat, a special type of fat tissue that generates heat without muscle movement. Human infants have significant amounts of brown fat. Adults retain some brown fat, particularly around the neck and shoulders. This is your internal heater. It burns calories to keep you warm without you having to do anything. Additionally, human body proportions affect heat retention. A 2013 study by Dr. Mark Collard at Simon Fraser University analyzed the relationship between body shape and climate in ancient human skeletons. Collard found that populations that lived in cold climates for many generations evolved shorter limbs and wider torsos. This body shape reduces surface area relative to volume. Less surface area means less heat loss. People from Arctic populations like the Inuit have body shapes that are significantly more cold adapted than people from equatorial populations. This is evolution at work, not the kind that takes millions of years. The kind that happens in thousands. The ancient winter diet was dominated by meat, massive amounts of meat. A 2014 study by Dr. Miki Ben-Dor at Tel Aviv University modeled the diet of Ice Age humans and found that up to 80% of their calories came from animal sources. This was not a choice. It was a necessity. Plant foods were simply not available for most of the year. The Ice Age diet was high in protein, high in fat, and very low in carbohydrates. It is the opposite of what most nutritional guidelines recommend today. but it kept humans alive through the most brutal conditions our species has ever faced. The human body is remarkably flexible in what it can eat, but that flexibility has limits. A 2016 study by Dr. Kara Okerbok at the University of Notre Dame found that humans eating a high-protein diet in cold conditions can experience what is called rabbit starvation. If the meat is too lean, if it does not contain enough fat, the body cannot process the protein fast enough. Toxins build up, diarrhea follows, death can occur within weeks, even with plenty of food available. This is why ancient winter hunters prized fat above all else. A lean winter was a deadly winter. Fat was life. Let me tell you about the Neanderthals, the other humans who mastered winter. Neanderthals lived in Europe and Asia for over 300,000 years. They survived multiple ice ages. They were, in many ways, better adapted to cold than Homo sapiens. A 2018 study by Dr. Svante Pääbo at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology sequenced the Neanderthal genome and identified genetic adaptations related to cold tolerance. Neanderthals had stockier bodies, shorter limbs, and larger nasal passages. Their bodies were designed to conserve heat. But despite these adaptations, Neanderthals disappeared around 40,000 years ago. Modern humans who evolved in Africa and were less cold adapted replaced them. This is one of the great mysteries of human evolution. How did the less cold-adapted species survive winter better than the cold-adapted one? The answer probably lies not in biology, but in technology. Modern humans had more efficient clothing, better shelter construction, and more flexible social structures. A 2019 study by Dr. Paula Villa at the University of Colorado Boulder compared the technological toolkits of Neanderthals and early modern humans. Villa found that modern humans had a wider range of specialized tools, including more effective needles, awls, and hide scrapers. Neanderthals were not stupid, they were not primitive, they were simply out-innovated. They had survived winter for 300,000 years, but when a more adaptable competitor arrived, their cold-adapted bodies were not enough. Let me tell you about the genetics of cold that you carry in your own body today. If you are of non-African descent, between 1 and 2% of your DNA comes from Neanderthals. Some of those genes relate to cold tolerance. A 2020 study by Dr. Tatum Simonson at the University of California, San Diego analyzed the genetic adaptations of Tibetan populations to high-altitude, cold environments. Simonson identified a variant of the EPA's 1 gene that helps Tibetans survive low oxygen levels at high altitudes. This gene variant is inherited from Denisovans, another extinct human species. You are carrying the genetic legacy of extinct humans right now. In your cells, Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA influences how your body responds to cold. A 2018 study by Dr. Rasmus Nielsen at the University of California, Berkeley analyzed how different human populations adapted to cold climates. Nielsen found that some cold-adapted genetic variants appeared in the past 10,000 years. After the Ice Age ended, human evolution did not stop when the glaciers retreated. It accelerated. The diseases that plague modern humans, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, may be linked to adaptations that helped your ancestors survive winter. Your body is a museum of Ice Age survival strategies. Every craving for fat, every shiver in the cold, every layer of clothing you put on is a reminder of the winters your ancestors endured. Let me tell you about the social side of winter survival. Winter was not just a physical challenge. It was a psychological one. Think about the television series Game of Thrones, where the phrase "winter is coming" is a constant reminder of existential threat. For ancient humans, that was not fiction, it was the structure of their lives. Every autumn, they knew what was coming. Every spring, they celebrated having survived it. Imagine being confined to a small shelter for weeks at a time, with the same people, in total darkness for most of the day. The sun barely rises above the horizon. When it does, it provides almost no warmth. You cannot go outside for long. You cannot hunt. You can only sit, talk, eat, and wait. A 2017 study by Dr. Robin Dunbar at the University of Oxford analysed the role of social bonding in ancient human survival. Dunbar found that storytelling, gossip, and shared rituals played a crucial role in maintaining group cohesion through long winters. Groups that told stories together were more likely to survive winter. They shared knowledge, they resolved conflicts, they reinforced social bonds that would be essential when spring came and cooperative hunting resumed. Winter was the season of stories. Around the hearth, in the darkness, ancient humans told tales of the hunt, of the spirits. These stories were not entertainment, they were survival. A 2019 study by Dr. Michelle Scalise-Sugiyama at the University of Oregon analyzed the content of traditional hunter-gatherer narratives across different cultures. Scalise-Sugiyama found that these stories contain detailed ecological information encoded in narrative form. The story of a hunter who fell through thin ice is not just a story, it is a manual for survival. Winter turned humans into storytellers, and storytelling turned scattered bands into coherent communities. Let me tell you about how ancient humans tracked the seasons. To survive winter, you need to know when it is coming. You need to anticipate the first freeze, the first snow, the disappearance of the herds. Ancient humans did not have calendars, but they watched the sky. The movements of the sun, moon, and stars provided a reliable seasonal calendar. When a specific constellation appeared on the horizon at dusk, it meant winter was coming. When the sun reached its lowest point in the sky, it meant the darkest days had arrived. When certain stars disappeared from view, it meant spring was near. A 2015 study by Dr. Clive Ruggles at the University of Leicester analysed the astronomical knowledge of traditional societies worldwide. Ruggles found that virtually every culture developed sophisticated methods for tracking seasonal changes using celestial observations. Ancient humans were expert naturalists, meteorologists, and astronomers. Their survival depended on it. Let me tell you about the cultural legacy of winter survival. Winter was not just something to be endured. It shaped the rituals and festivals that still exist today. The winter solstice, celebrated by cultures worldwide, marks the turning point when the days begin to lengthen again. For ancient humans, the solstice was a moment of profound relief. The sun was coming back. Life would return. The worst was over. A 2016 study by Dr. Timothy Insole at the University of Exeter analysed the archaeological evidence for winter solstice celebrations in prehistoric Europe. Insole found evidence that Neolithic people built structures aligned to the midwinter sunrise, suggesting organised rituals around the shortest day of the year. The fire festivals, the feasts, the gatherings around the hearth. Ancient humans celebrated surviving winter long before they had written language or agriculture. The New Year celebrations of modern cultures may have their origins in the simple joy of having made it through another winter. Let me tell you about what winter survival cost. For all their ingenuity, ancient humans did not survive every winter. Winters killed the old, the young, the injured, the unlucky. A 2020 study by Dr. Kelly Graff at Texas A&M University analysed burial sites from the last ice age and found evidence of periodic famine. Skeletal evidence shows signs of growth interruption in children during winter months. Teeth reveal bands of enamel hypoplasia, marks of nutritional stress, that correspond to winter seasons. Winter was not a challenge. It was a filter. It selected for the prepared, the cooperative, the innovative. It selected for groups that could store enough food, build warm enough shelters, and maintain strong enough social bonds. Groups that failed these tests did not survive. Their genes did not pass on. Your ancestors are the ones who passed the winter test. You are here because your ancestors were good at winter. Let me bring this back to you. The next time you feel cold, pay attention to what your body does. Your blood vessels constrict, your muscles tense, your metabolism increases. You are activating systems that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years. The cold you feel is the same cold your ancestors felt on the frozen plains of Siberia. The shiver is the same shiver. The urge to find shelter is the same urge. The craving for warm food is the same craving. You are not just feeling cold, you are experiencing 40,000 years of winter survival history. Every winter you live through, you are continuing a tradition that is older than your species. Winter almost killed us. But it also made us. The cold forced us to invent, to plan, to cooperate, to think ahead. Without winter, you would still be in Africa. You would still be one species among many. You would not have spread across the planet. You would not have built cities, written books, or sent probes to Mars. Think about that. The next time you binge watch a series on Netflix while wrapped in a blanket, your comfort is built on the suffering of your ancestors. A 2019 study by Dr. Brian Fagan at the University of California, Santa Barbara, argued that cold climates